Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love these watches, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability concerning this watch. Hot off the presses and new for 2025 from Tudor, we have the Black Bay 68. At 43 millimeters, this is a master chronometer certified Black Bay with a larger size, a more modern 3-link bracelet design. It is something for those who prefer a bolder watch on the wrist while still retaining the vintage evocative style that has made the Black Bay very, very popular. While not the first 43 millimeter Black Bay, there have been previous examples like the original Black Bay Bronze. This one is designed to be a more contemporary, pared down, and standard aesthetic. It's not black, it's not bronze, it's a very straight play in the dive class executed to a very high level. 43 in diameter in steel. You can see the watch in profile, 13.8 millimeters thick as I measure it, 51.7 from lug tip to lug tip with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. And here you can see that this is not necessarily a Black Bay for big wrists, although it is that. My wrist is not large at 16 centimeters circumference, and yet I can still wear it. Part of the advantage of a larger instrument-style watch like a diver is that it is more legible and certainly succeeds on that basis. So I believe that even if your wrist is my size, 16 centimeters circumference, you could find this wear as well. So 16 centimeters and up, you're going to find this is a good match for your wrist. Here's your over the top, here's your down the barrel shot. I would even say that it's thinner than the bare measurement suggests, and it will fit underneath many cuffs. The watch has a solidity to it. It's always nice when you have a substantial watch to have a substantial bracelet. These two things tend to counterbalance each other, so if you wear your watch loose, the watch isn't really going to hula hoop on the wrist. It's counterweighted by the clasp and the bracelet. I mentioned earlier that this is a 3-link bracelet that's less like what we see on, for example, a Black Bay 58. That watch, with its rivet-style bracelet, is more of a vintage aesthetic, whereas this is much more contemporary. We have a conforming end link that cleanly mates the bracelet to the case. There's a taper down from the end link towards the clasp. The outer faces are polished. The primaries and the top facets are satinated. You can see from the bottom there's some calculated gaps here between the links to avoid pinching skin, pulling hair, or trapping wrist heat, and that abundantly. We have a folding clasp with a clamshell lock, a thick gauge, single swing arm. All this is steel, with the exception of these ceramic spring-loaded pin snaps, which are designed, and you can see them inboard and outboard. They're designed to ensure that the steel can never wear down the pin snap and cause looseness, so the tolerances will remain tight and snappy indefinitely. So it snaps into place, then the clamshell snaps down. There's a shield logo reminding you this is Tudor. Here's the external aesthetic. We have the T-fit system inside the clasp. This was an innovation launched in 2021. You can see that there are several predefined incremental stops for this tool-free adjustment mechanism, so you can fine-tune the fit or pull it out all the way for use over a diving suit. And it has about 8 millimeters of total adjustable range there. So let's snap that all back down. By the way, the Shield logo. A lot of these in-house Tudors, they have a curious combination of the more modern Shield logo on the dial, and then blink and you'll miss it, the vintage Tudor rose dial on the crown. So it's worth mentioning as we look at this case that we have these lovely vintage evocative bezels on the lug, so a reminder of the time when this is how Tudor sports watch cases came delivered, but also the no crown guard profile. Tudor fans are going to remember that by 1968 there were definitely crown guards on Tudor Submariners. So this watch isn't specifically a re-edition of the Tudor watches made in 1968. It is more of a modern, full-sized Black Bay that keeps the essential styling of the core model intact in a larger format. One element that is much appreciated here is the return to an anodized aluminum insert for the bezel, and that just gives it more of a vintage look. Along with the bubble-like sapphire that evokes plexiglass, the anodized insert gives you a metallic sheen that you cannot get with ceramics, so it is welcome in this application. The Pelagos, of course, has ceramic because it's a more modern style diver. This one's more vintage evocative. 60-click bezel with excellent action, and you really feel and hear the detent. In case you doubt it's 60, let's double check just right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times 12 is 60. There you go. Micro knurling, easy to grip when your hands are wet, sweaty, or gloved. I prefer it to chunkier knurling. And of course, manipulating a bezel when your hands are wet is sort of the bare minimum for a diver. It's amazing how many brands get this wrong. Tudor does not. Another thing Tudor gets right that many dive watchmakers get wrong is that all three hands are loomed. So when you look at the loom of this watch, you can see the seconds hand moving, which is essential. If this is going to be your backup dive timer, you need to know in the depths that it's running, and you do have that. You can see the bezel pearl, read it against the minute hand. Now you've got an impromptu 0 to 60 minute count-up timer, which I always find easier to read and lower maintenance than a chronograph. Frankly, almost anything you would measure with a chronograph can be measured with a dive bezel. And then we've got a dial that is equal parts vintage and modern. So vintage includes the no date combination with a chapter ring outboard, and then a snowflake style hour hand. So this little snowflake hand, evocative of the Tudor Submariners made from the late 60s through the mid 70s. Then modern features, like for example, this lush blue metallic sunburst dial base. Now of course there's also a silver one, and I'll have a separate video for that, but this is the blue model if you want a little bit more visual warmth to your watch. Another upscale element, you can see applique indices on a vintage Tudor. These would have been printed, so you see these have been applied. Inside the case, we have a Tudor manufacturer movement. So this is the MT5601U automatic 70-hour power reserve, 4 Hz beat rate, stop seconds, so you can set it to a reference time, anti-magnetic silicone hairspring. It has a full balance bridge with a free sprung balance for shock resistance, and it is now a METAS master chronometer. So the Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology helped to dream up this standard that goes beyond the bare COSC. Of course, this meets the COSC chronometer certification standards. But remember, COSC is 5 positions for bare movement. This is a 6-position chronometric test for the entire assembled watch. It also includes water resistance, durability, it includes winding efficiency, power reserve, and exposure to over 15,000 Gauss. That's more than 1.5 Tesla. That's what it means to be a master chronometer, and you're seeing the proliferation of this standard across the range at Tudor. Of course, per the ISO, this watch is rated to 200 meters, but it's actually tested beyond that, so you can rest assured. Screw-down crown, and of course, the vintage no-guard structure makes it a little bit easier in practice to actually withdraw that crown. One feature I always admire about Tudor and its movements is that there's very little dead angle in the crown, so as you turn it, the minute's hand jumps almost immediately. Also, there's no wobble to the crown. When withdrawn, the stem and the stem tube assembly is rock solid and robust. It feels like a luxury product. So there is lots to love here. The Black Bay just got bigger. You're looking at the Tudor Black Bay 68 with blue dial, full bracelet. This is an incredible timepiece. And I will also mention that the timepiece can be fitted with accessory straps from Tudor if you wish to switch up the look. So reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details. Those of you who will be buying this watch should also know you get 5 years of warranty protection with your Tudor.